Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. This is Dave again here with you. I have a guest today who's on here to talk about how to find and protect your voice as a podcaster. Robert Lee is here. Robert is joining me as a vocal coach. And the reason I'm having Robert on the podcast is, as a podcaster, I'm not finding this topic out there amongst all the other podcast shows that talk about how to protect and find our voice. And I think as podcasters is one of the things that we don't think about and possibly neglect. And it can be the one thing that might keep somebody from starting their podcast, is the fear of your voice, not understanding your voice, not liking your voice. Robert's here to help us to have a healthy opinion of our voice, to take care of our voice. And he takes us behind the scenes and shares the science behind protecting and keeping our voice healthy. Something we all need as podcasters, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. Because again, it's an episode I couldn't find anywhere else. And Robert is an amazing guy to have on the show. Robert Lee on the How to Podcast series. This one's for you and for your voice. You ready? Here we go. Well, everybody, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have a very special guest today. Robert is joining me today. We're going to be talking about something I haven't found online yet until today, is how, as podcasters, we can protect and find our voice, be healthy with our vocal cords, and be able to do this podcasting thing for the long term. Some healthy tips from Robert's perspective and point of view. Robert Lee is with me today. Robert, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me.
It's exciting to have an expert in the room, and I'd love to kind of share a little bit about your background, Robert, because that's going to be our springboard into our conversation today. Again, so grateful that you have time to chat with us. Let's talk a little bit about your musical background and a little bit of what you're doing and how we're going to tie this into our podcast listeners who are podcasters looking to protect their voice for the long term. Again, let's start with a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give sort of as much as I've I'll give the whole story. So
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Hong Kong. Came to the US for college, and I'm living currently in California in the San Francisco Bay Area. Growing up, was on the path to basically become a business person. My dad's in real estate. And so I thought for sure I was going to become, maybe do an MBA one day. When I got to college, I went to Brown University. I thought that I was going to study business. Quickly switched over to urban studies. Ended up graduating with a degree in urban studies. Moved to the Bay Area, starting in the restaurant business, working for some restaurant investors, and then switching over into tech. But outside of work, music was always there. And I started singing in choirs when I was 6 years old. I led my first ensemble around my teens. I think I was 16 years old when I first took up conducting, and did a cappella in college. And all throughout my life, outside of school, outside of work, singing was there, and leading groups was there. So yeah, lots of things came together in 2018, 2019. Directed a big show. The company I was working for at the time was preparing to IPO. And so at that point, I decided, if I don't try this now, I'll probably regret it for the rest of my life. And so I decided to quit my job in 2019, and go into spreading my love for music full time. And yeah, I was going to give it a few months, and then here I am 3 years later.
Nice. So tell me who you work with. I've been on your website. I love it, by the way. Tell me who you work with, kind of some of the people that come to you. Where are they at on the musical scale? Are they scale? Oh, that's funny. Are they starting at the beginning, or are they kind of seasoned singers? Tell me who you work with.
Yeah, I work with singers across all levels. And I would say that my strength as a teacher is helping my students understand their voice, helping them understand the mechanics and the anatomy of their voice, um, so that they can make better decisions for themselves and so that they can teach and guide themselves into the future. And I would say that this uh, is an approach that works with students of all levels, because even if you're a fantastic singer and you've been singing your entire life, we think like the voice is a black box, like you can't see into it, like you can maybe for dance, like you can look into the mirror and see exactly how your arms are moving. But with singing, you think of a sound, you make the sound, and then that's kind of it. And then you have to use your ears and other things to adjust. And yeah, a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. And I love seeing the light bulbs go off. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, you're using your voice all the time. And so it's interesting, like teaching somebody how to use this thing that they're already an expert in using. Um, and yeah, I love that, like enlightening, um, that just like feeling of enlightenment that I can give
Nice.
people.
So the mechanics behind your vocal ability, I'd love to get into this. This is exactly what I was hoping to find when I reached out to you and I saw your post about looking to be on podcast. Was I would really love to kind of get into the mechanics of this, because as podcasters, we are using our voice every time we come to the microphone. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we put a lot of value into developing our voice and protecting our voice. So I'd love
Yeah.
to kind of get your insight first on getting, one of the things I get constant feedback on is, Dave, I don't like the sound of my own voice when I hear it
Yeah.
recorded. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
funny to me. Can you
Mm-hmm.
explain the science behind why it sounds funny on a recording compared to what we're used to hearing to ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say whoever's listening, and even to you, David, um, most people, if not actually, no, I will say everybody is biased uh, towards their voice, because the voice that you hear in your own head is different because of physics than the way that other people perceive your voice. Um, when you dunk your head underwater, like the soundscape completely changes, right? If somebody might be having a conversation, music might be playing, you go underwater, all you can hear is the thumping bass, right? Um, so your ears are in your head, right? And
Mhm.
your vocal apparatus, your larynx, is right next to the head and connected by tissues. So most of what you hear in your own voice is the vibration moving and being conducted through the tissues of your neck, and into your skull, and then into your ear directly. Um, and that's a very different way that sound moves compared to how sound moves through the air, right? So your body is much denser than air, and therefore it conducts sort of like those lower, beefier tones better, like you would hear underwater. And the way that we're biased against our own voice is we hear this like boominess all the time in our voice, because of that conduction. And what we like that, and the way that that biases us is it kind of over indexes us or the way that we sound towards that lower spectrum, the lower side of that spectrum. And so, what I hear most of the time when people are talking about not liking the sound of their voice is something along the lines of, my voice sounds annoying, shrill, nasal, adolescent. Um, those are all adjectives that we would use to describe voices with a bias towards higher overtones, um, because we're hearing our voice without the lower overtones that we're usually hearing it with.
Right.
Um, so yeah, there's a physics-based scientific reason why you think your voice is shrill or annoying or doesn't sound right. And the thing that I'll say with that is you're the only one with that bias because you're the only one who hears yourself that way. Nobody else in your life has ever heard that version of your voice.
Wow, good point. And to date, probably for 99% of the people listening, no one's ever run away from you when they heard you talk or hidden for cover because your voice, right?
Yeah.
So everyone hears you that way and they know you that way. So one of the things I heard back, Robert, because growing up, for me, shy kid, kind of the wallflower in the background, not really wanting much attention, um, kind of an introvert for myself. I always was not a big fan of my voice growing up and struggled with that. And I
Mm-hmm.
recently received feedback from a listener that said my voice was calming in a podcast. And that's one of the reasons they keep coming back to hear my podcast is they really enjoy the calming tones of my voice. And
Yeah.
it was hard for me to accept that because in my head, I'm like, that's not real. Somebody's giving you a compliment on your voice. When I'm thinking in my history of all the things I've thought of myself, I had to put those on the shelf and accept that moment from that listener because they had nothing to gain or nothing to lose by sharing that feedback with me. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a moment for me to go, okay, well, there is hope. There is hope for me as a podcaster that my voice will connect with people. And I think that's one thing we really struggle with is the confidence then to get on the microphone if we don't like the sound of our own voice on a recording is to understand what you've told us
Mm-hmm.
and then say, okay, I'm going to have confidence in what Robert's shared with me
Mm-hmm.
and what Dave's telling me that I can do this. Because that's a big hurdle to get over in the initial stages is hearing your playback and go, ooh,
Yeah.
that's me, right?
Yeah.
Do you hear that with
Absolutely.
the people you work with as well then?
Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
Um, I think, part of that is just reaching a new normal with the reality of your voice and accepting that you do have this bias and understanding where it comes from, and then being able to take an objective step back, um, and sort of start from a point of this is where I am, truthfully, and yeah, I love what you said, and I think it expands so much further than just the voice,
Mm.
right? The narratives that we tell ourselves, what we're good at, what we're bad at. Sometimes the things that we perceive as our own weaknesses are actually superpowers. And that's just how we walk in the world. And that's what the world needs. So I think there's so much in that little nugget that you just said, David.
Nice. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about confidence then.
Yeah.
If it's all in our head, Robert, mentally
Yeah.
and physically all in our head about our voice, when somebody comes to you to sing and to learn how to sing and do it properly,
Mm-hmm.
and they're battling confidence issues, where do you start with somebody who is head down, shoulders down, not sure they can do this, but they really want to? How do you work on the confidence side of people finding their voice?
Start by saying that there is a path for everybody, and that path looks slightly different.
Okay.
So part of, being a singing teacher is very quickly trying to understand what the right approach might be for that particular student. But one thing that I see in most singers who are nervous, speakers included, is the voice that they bring to the session is very different from the like let's see, what is the word here? Um like if you're excited about a topic and you're passionate about it, you can hear that in somebody's voice.
Right.
And we can technically speaking, you can hear that they maybe speak in an elevated range, kind of like how I am, right? I might raise my volume a little bit. I might speak a little faster. I'm speaking with healthy resonance, right? Like all these objective qualities in my voice are coming out because I'm excited and I'm animated about a specific topic.
Mm.
Um, but if I'm nervous about something and I'm not totally sure. And if I come to the microphone and I'm singing a song for the first time and I'm going, when I find myself, Mother Mary comes to me, like
Right.
and
Yeah.
I'm holding things back, it's a different mechanism, right? I'm literally using a um different area, a different coordination in my voice.
Yeah.
And I think when people talk about wanting to find their natural sound, or like what voice they want to have online, or when they're in conversation, or when they're leading in front of a room and all that kind of stuff. First of all, your voice is your voice, right? Any sound that's coming out of you is your voice. So you've already found it.
Yeah.
Congratulations, right? The question is more, what is the sound that you want people to hear? What do you want to be associated with? And uh, what I would guide my students towards is, what do you sound like when you're animated? What do you sound like when you're excited? Let's use that voice. And
Mm.
so I would usually open with something like, you're using your shy inside voice. Let's just throw judgment out the window. The exercise here is we're going to intentionally sound bombastic, and we're not even going to try singing it. Let's just like exclaim the words or something along those lines, just to get
Okay.
them
Yeah.
out of their own like inhibitions.
Right.
And then let's start from there.
Nice. Because the one thing I'm seeing too is I've out of nervousness, sometimes people come to the microphone and they really start talking fast and they don't put any punctuation in their sentence. And it just kind of really goes really fast. And you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa. Or they say their website, howtopodcast.ca. You're like, okay, I didn't get that. Can you do that
Mm-hmm.
again? Like just
Mm-hmm.
slow down. So when nerves kick in, then we're getting a little bit of confidence, but our nerves kick in because we're in front of an audience, or we're on a microphone and someone's listening, or on stage. The crowd's looking at us, and our speed just starts picking up and picking up and picking up. How do
Yeah.
we how do we tell ourselves to slow down and give ourselves some space in those kind of
Yeah.
moments?
Doing a vocal performance or speaking in front of an audience is a different circumstance than when you're practicing, right? Like fight or flight response, you have adrenaline pumping through your veins. That's going to cause you to do many things, including speeding up when you talk. And there are there are a few things that you can tell yourself. For example, if you have a mantra that says in the back of your head, slow down, um, articulate your words, practice more so that when you actually get up, it's subconscious, right? The level of control you have over your delivery.
Right.
That's one approach, right? It's like kind of like design the environment, put up guardrails, and tell yourself, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to um, end every sentence with a clear full stop. I'm going to put in long, uncomfortable pauses.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's a technique side of things.
Mm.
Yeah. And I would say definitely do some of that. And on the other side, um, do everything you can to manage that physiological response. So we know that deep breathing, for example, and slow measured breaths can help to regulate heart rate and adrenaline levels. So I would say if you're going into a recording situation, or when your guest is talking in the middle of a session,
Right.
and by doing that, by calming that nervous system down, um, stuff will happen to your voice that'll probably be in the direction that you're looking for.
So I was listening to an episode on another podcast, and the guest, it sounded like the door was closing and they were trying to get as many words in as they could before the door closed. So they were
Mm.
going as fast as possible. Words were slamming into each other. There were no breaks. There was no breath. I don't even know how they did it without passing out. And as a listener, I started to get nervous. I started
Yeah.
to feel kind of rushed. And I'm just a listener. I'm not even participating. I'm just there. Right. And I found it awkward as a listener. So what comes from us into our audience can have an impact on our listeners as well. So we need to
Hmm.
keep them in mind so that they don't feel panicked and they don't feel rushed through content or rushed through a song or rushed through a presentation because we feel rushed and pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. When you hear your mom screaming at you, telling you to do something, you have an automatic response, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessarily due to what she's saying, but
Mhm.
it's how they're saying it. So yeah, this is innate.
I love it. Okay, so let's talk some health stuff for our voice. Again, another thing, reason why I'm so happy to have you on, Robert, because I haven't, as a podcaster, I haven't had anybody or had heard an episode on any show that talks about protecting our voice as a podcaster. And I
Hmm.
know I've come to the microphone tired, maybe not feeling well, spent time recording an episode, and then I listen back and go, wow, I can tell that I'm tired. I can hear it in my
Yeah.
voice. That's a saying, right? You can hear it in their voice.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me, what kind of exercises, how do we take care of our voice? Maybe even diet, rest. What kind of things should we take into account as podcasters to live a healthy lifestyle that will come to the microphone with us and help us to be more effective?
Yeah. This is a big question. And there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces in there. Um, but yeah, why don't we start with a vocal exercise,
Ooh.
actually? Can we try that?
Wow. Now I'm nervous. Okay, this is good. Okay,
So,
let's do it.
you're welcome, by the way, David, to mute yourself because then this is, by the way, what I do in my group session. I teach a session called the Vocal Gym, which is a group coaching singing class
Beautiful.
online.
Yes.
And what I do is I'll lead an activity. I'll have my students mute themselves so they can try it. And then at the end, after the activity is over, I'll ask people to unmute and maybe I can give some feedback, but we don't have to do that today. But here's the exercise. We're going to hum, and we're going to hum little circles. We're going to go, like you just ate a delicious meal. You're going to go,
Mm. Okay, yeah. Mm.
What we're looking for in this hum is as much buzziness in our face and in our, anywhere in our body
Okay,
as we can feel with without going for volume, without trying to be loud.
okay.
It's
All
like
right.
how much resonance can we get per unit of volume or air pressure, really. So it's
Okay.
soft, controlled, but resonant and present. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. I'm noticing in your voice, Dave, do you mind if I
Oh yeah,
coach
no,
you a
please.
little
I
bit?
love this.
When you drop in pitch, you get to the bottom, you lose a little bit of that resonance.
Okay, yeah.
Can you workshop that a little bit?
See, I love this. This is great, Robert. Okay. Mm.
Very nice.
I could
That was
feel it. I
better.
could feel it when you said that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So one of the things that we want to avoid when we are speaking in general, like just one thing to know is um your voice is resonance, right? That's what tone is. And that's most of what people perceive. And the consonants around the vowels, the consonants around the tone, that helps to shape the tone.
Yeah.
But the tone is what carries the sound in general. And sometimes when we're speaking and we drop into parts of our voice that we aren't thinking about or that we're not supporting properly, we lose the resonance, right? And so
Yeah.
one piece of advice that I would give to you, David, is as you are speaking and in your natural cadence going low in your in your pitch, watch out for those less resonant parts of your voice. This goes the opposite too, right? Like if I'm in a crowded area or if I'm trying to be heard in a loud bar or something, what I would do is, hey, whoa, David, can you get me another one of those? Like, I'm amping up the resonance, but I'm
Mhm.
not necessarily amping up the effort or the volume that I'm putting out.
Nice. I get that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the important thing when it comes to um, projecting your voice is that resonant component. I'll also add one more thing, which is when we're not speaking resonantly, when we're not singing resonantly, we are using our voice in a suboptimal way. Like our vocal folds are designed to run forever if they are in a healthy alignment, when they're actually um, oscillating in a full and balanced way. And when we go breathy, for example, that's an suboptimal vocal fold action. And when we go like really pressed, this is a suboptimal like vocal production as well.
Yeah.
And both of those things will tire your voice out much faster and create fatigue.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot because I hear that in people quite often, especially if they're feeling like they need to put on a show or be a fake person or Sunday, 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 that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you would normally talk, right? Around the dinner table, hey, Robert, pass me the salt. It's like, really, I don't talk like that. No, talk your normal voice because I think that's where you're going to have more. Is that where you're going to get more range and more stamina in your regular normal voice? Is that right? Than in putting on a facade, a fake voice?
I would say notice what your voice does when you do a hearty belly laugh. Ha 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 ha. This is maybe the range and the technique that I want to be speaking in.
Okay.
That's naturally where my voice goes when with a laugh, it's completely like you can't control what sound comes out,
Right.
right? And so that's what your voice naturally wants to do. Um, and yeah, live there, live there.
I can see people listening right now, Robert, going, rewinding all that, doing the hums and now like practicing a laugh and finding those spots for their voice. This is like exactly what I was hoping for this episode, by the way, or
Great.
exactly where I want it to be. Um, what else can we do, Robert, to clarify and solidify in our minds what our voice is so that we can do more of that and less of the other stuff?
Yeah, totally. Um, ooh, our voice is all of the history that we have, right? You grow up in a specific context and you have accents and you have affects and you have the Valley Girl voice and the British accent and you have all these different sounds, right? That society sort of and the way that you're brought up
Right.
makes you use. And then there's your natural anatomy. And then as a layer on top of those things, there's like training, right? And surgery and other stuff, right, that can be added on. Um, to find your, I would say, experiment to find the voice that you want to use and carry. Um, and that's what a lot of voice coaching is it's showing you what your voice is capable of already and figuring out what you want to bring out more of. So, um, recording yourself, listening back is a great thing to do. But in doing so, you kind of need to have an idea of where you actually want your voice to go and what you want to sound like. And so maybe an exercise that I would suggest here would be um, brainstorm like who do you want to sound like? Like as a singer, like what artists influence your voice? What
Hmm.
artists have influenced your voice? And then what artists would you like to sound more like? And then imitate um, their cadence, their affect, their vowels as much as possible. um, imitate, so that you get a feel for um, you give your body a new set of muscle memory to play with. And then when you come back and you're analyzing your own voice, how can I bring in 50% Barack Obama, 25% um, Billie Holiday, and 10% David Campbell? You
Hmm.
know, like, and then see what happens.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
And would you say that when you're picking somebody to kind of model your voice after, in musical terms, we talk about somebody's range. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I know if I'm in the car driving to work and I have a song comes on by an artist that I think I fits in my range, I love singing along with them because it's not a lot of work. I can hit the same notes, I can kind of follow along. But then I get
Absolutely.
like Ariana Grande comes on, I'm like, no, there's no way. Like she opens car doors with her voice. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
like I just know that that's not my range. So is that kind of a thing even on spoken word as well, that there's kind of a range that your voice sits in?
Yeah. There is a range that your voice sits in most naturally to you.
Yeah.
And again, I think the range that is most comfortable is probably what comes out when you do a belly laugh
Okay.
or something along those lines.
Right.
Um, but human voices are incredibly adaptable. I mean, there's an entire field of voice coaching that's gender affirming voice therapy,
Hmm.
right? Where you can actually train the muscles in your voice over time to sound more feminine, more masculine, whatever you're looking for.
Amazing.
There's dialect coaching, right?
Yeah.
And that can change your long-term pronunciation in a specific language.
Right.
Um, so range is a factor, but it can also be worked on and increased. It's not necessarily a natural limit. And then the other thing that I'll tack on to that is range is only one component of a singer's or a speaker's tone, right? So let me see. Um, let's say that I wanted to do I'll pull a singing example, right? So I'm singing um, a pop ballad. Let's say I'm singing like "Take Me Into Your Loving Arms," something along those lines,
Mhm.
right? I'll take that one as one example. Then I'll take something like "Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars," right? Fly me to
Yeah.
the moon.
Right.
I could sing "Fly Me to the Moon" with that same affect way lower. Fly me to the moon. I can sing it way higher. Fly me to the moon and let me play, which is very different from take me into your loving arms versus
Hmm.
take me into your loving arms. Like I'm using a different accent for both songs, right?
Right.
So you can take lessons from um, like Ariana Grande and apply it to
Yeah.
your range, right? Down low.
Oh, Lord help me.
It's a vowel, it's
Yeah.
affect,
Right.
it's whether you use breathiness or not. It's there's so many different aspects to the voice.
Amazing. Robert, can you share like a success story from somebody who's come to you and you worked with them and you helped them find their voice? How does that make you feel as a voice coach, and maybe a little bit about their story and how you help them?
Yeah, absolutely. I won't share names.
No,
I don't
yeah,
have
that's
any
fine.
I don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
the explicit permission.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm thinking right now of one singer who, and by the way, a lot of people share this story. She grew up singing in choir, school choir, right? And she had this beautiful, like natural and light, um, not even light, a very malleable speaking tone. But every time she went to sing, it was um, you can like tell when somebody is singing with a choral voice, maybe like overly classical, right?
Hmm.
So, um, like if I were singing like take me into your loving arms, right?
Right.
That
Yeah,
that that kind of an affect.
yeah.
Um, and um, all she wanted to do was sing pop music and not feel silly doing it. Um, And the fix was so fast. It was so fast. And what I asked her to do was, can you speak the lyrics? Take me into your loving arms. Just speak them. Let's use contemporary English vowels in whatever accent you're using, right? And now let's put them in rhythm. Take me in to your take me into your loving arms. Let's do that a few times. Take me into your loving arms. Now let's put it in the pitch range. Take me into your loving arms. Take me into your loving arms. And now, without doing anything else, just put the pitches in there. Take me into your loving arms. 45 minutes. 45 minutes, completely different way of using their voice.
Wow.
And the transformation was, not in the mechanics, not even necessarily in the technique. It was a realization that she had been thinking that, okay, when I speak, I'm using one particular side of my voice. And when I'm singing, I'm flipping over to this complete different gear and I'm going to use my voice in this complete different way. When contemporary singing is just closer to speaking than it is to operatic singing or any other kind of singing. It was a 45-minute thing. And
wow.
Yeah. So I have many stories like that. That's one of the most common things that I see in my world.
See, there's hope. That's what I love. I wanted a story of hope to share with everybody that's listening. From your perspective, Robert, and I know you're a little bit biased towards this answer potentially, but for a new podcaster still struggling to gain confidence and be good in their own skin with their voice, the benefits of working with a vocal coach to come in and just do what we're doing today, but in person or via Zoom or whatever, however it works now, but to spend time with somebody who's an expert in the field, to ask the questions, do the practice, get some insight, get some perspective. What is the benefit you see to a podcaster spending some time with someone like you? How can we benefit?
Yeah. First of all, there is plenty you can do on your own, right? And like a little bit of mindfulness goes a long way when it comes to working with your own voice. A voice coach can get you where you want to be faster.
Right.
And can also help you shape what that image of where you want to be might look like. So let's say, for example, I have a preconceived notion that my voice sounds tinny and high and breathy. And so I'm going to, or whatever it sounds like, but I want to sound like this other person. So I'm going to imitate this other person and until my voice sounds like them. That's totally a reasonable path to try when you're working by yourself. Working with a teacher, there's a couple different things that might happen. One of them might be interrogating, is that person really what you want to sound like? What about these other possibilities? Or how about the fact that you're actually biased against your own voice? You probably didn't know that one, right? So they can kind of change the image and help you come to maybe a more informed vision for what you want your voice to sound like. And then also, as you're imitating and trying to get to that voice, they can say, have you tried dropping your jaw? Have you tried, like I'm seeing that you're carrying tension in your shoulders, right? And they can kind of like use their knowledge and their background about the voice to just get you where you want to be more efficiently and faster. And that would be the value of working with a voice coach.
Nice. Before we go head off here in a moment, Robert, what about, you kind of touched on some healthy things to do for your voice. What about when we come to the microphone, maybe we have multiple interviews, we have a lot of recording time to do today. We need our voice to be healthy and strong for an extended period of time. We want to be productive. What kind of things should we embrace to protect our voice? I'm thinking liquids and hydration, that kind of things. I noticed you took a drink before we had record. What kind of
Yep.
things should we do to protect our voice in that sense that will prolong or strengthen our voice when we need it the most?
Yeah. Um, Keeping your voice healthy is about managing inflammation. Because when you lose your voice,
Right.
a lot of times it's because your vocal folds are actually swollen. They're physically swollen. And when we work through and we push through swelling, sometimes we get like lacerations, like small little cuts. And then when they heal over, they scab. And that's what a vocal nodule is, right? So managing it's about managing inflammation and load. So the same things where like if you twisted your ankle and it was swollen, um, you would do the same things with your voice. So um, hydration is really important. I have a Camelback on my backpack.
Yep.
I actually keep it there all the time. That means I have water at literally my fingertips at any point, and it's a huge reservoir. That's what works for me. But drinking liquids is really important. Sleep is really important too, because it is, really it's a uninterrupted stretch of time where you're healing because you're not using that specific muscle.
Right.
Right. And then also one aspect that I think is underrated for maintaining your voice is vocal rest. So that's if you're doing an 8-hour day, whenever that's done, carry around a notebook, try not to cough, try not to clear your throat, and let your voice heal. So yeah, so sleep, hydration, vocal rest, really, really important things. And then in the moment, as you are actually doing your podcasting or singing or whatever you're doing, being mindful about anything that you know about technique and your bad habits. Maybe keep them on a post-it somewhere on your desk.
Smart.
I have one that says, don't forget to project, because sometimes when I am, working from home and whatever, I'll then sit back. My posture will suffer, and then I end up speaking with this kind of voice, which you can hear has very little resonance in it.
Right.
That's because I'm not managing my air pressure properly. So when I'm speaking full out, my voice lasts a lot longer.
Nice. And I got to ask, anything to avoid from your point of view for that's not helpful to your vocal cords?
Screaming excessively.
Right.
Long karaoke nights with reckless abandon. Karaoke's great, right? But if you feel your voice failing, take a break.
Yeah.
And pushing through when your voice is tired, not a bad idea. Like avoid it if you can.
Yeah.
There's some perception around diet, right? That we can talk about. Like
Sure.
for some people, avoid dairy. For other singers, drink a glass of milk before I go on every time. For some singers, avoid spice, acid reflux, all that kind of stuff. For other singers, doesn't really matter. Um, Postnasal drip is another really big one.
Okay.
We're getting into allergy season.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. So, postnasal drip, the mucus goes down into, your close to your larynx, causes inflammation. So, anti-inflammatories, guaifenesin, I think is the name for an anti-congestant, stuff along those lines, like manage that symptom. Yeah, that might be another thing.
So, Robert, from your perspective, I want to make sure we didn't miss something that's really key. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you're like, one more thing for everyone listening, please either stop doing this or start doing this? Anything else we haven't touched on?
Yeah, if I could maybe summarize,
Please.
like I think people get really into their heads about exactly what kind of technique they should be using. I feel like I can't sing because I've never received training and sort of all things along those lines. Or I feel like my voice sounds bad and I can't do anything about it on my own. Like you're an expert in your own voice. You are a expert singer. You're an expert speaker because you've been doing it for, you know, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
And you have the capacity to learn and adjust. So wherever you're starting from, know that you're biased against your own voice, but it's probably starting from a really good place already, from a place of expertise, in fact. And there is always room to shift and grow. So yeah, wherever you are in your journey, starting is the most important thing.
Perfect. Robert, that's exactly what I was hoping for today. And for you to make time today to share your wisdom and knowledge with us. I'm really hoping that people really latch onto this episode again, because I, as a podcaster, can't find anybody talking about this. And it is crucial that we protect our voice, we find our voice, and do all the things the right way so that we can continue doing what we do. Because without our voice, very hard to podcast. It's quite impossible. So
very hard to do many other things too.
Right? Exactly. So
yeah.
And I know your expertise primarily in singing, but I knew in talking to you previously that you could help so many that are listening to my show. So I thank you for being available to do that. And as well, I'd love to kind of point people in your direction as well. I have singers that are here listening. I have people that would definitely benefit from your wisdom and your training. So where do we go, Robert? What do we do to connect with you? And because I know you can help so many people.
Thank you, David. And thank you for having me. You can find my website at rleevoice.com. And I'm Arlie Voice on TikTok and Instagram as well. And you can shoot me an email, robert.lee.voice@gmail.com. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you for having me.
So great having you on, Robert. I would love to have you on again in the future if that's okay with you. I'd love to reach out again.
Absolutely.
I'm sure there's going to be more to talk about.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you, Robert. And everyone, thank you for listening. And again, please go support Robert and all the great things he's doing there. I hope that this episode helps you as a podcaster, because we want you to get out there and share your voice. But if you're not taking care of it, pretty hard to share your voice. So, Robert, you've helped us so much, and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Awesome.